Hey Newsies, happy Friday. It is I, Becca Lori Hector, here with your Neurodiversity news in a nutshell for this week here on Neurodiversity Newsstand. Welcome, you guys. If you're new to the channel, this is my weekly summary of the news in neurodiversity coming from my Facebook and LinkedIn groups called Neurodiversity Newsstand. What I do is I take our popular articles, the things we talked about the most, the memes, the events, the books, all of those things, and I sum them up at the end of the week in a little 20-minute video so that you guys don't have to read everything if you don't have the time. In any case, here I am. It is the end of my week, the end of your week, and I will share with you that this week has been an uncomfortable week for me. I feel like I look okay now as I'm looking at myself making this video, but the last couple of days I looked like ass. I looked so bad, you guys. Such deep circles under my eyes. I don't know exactly what happened, so here's the thing. I was feeling kind of icky, sort of tired, and I thought, oh, well, maybe it's from that travel that I did or whatever, and I overexerted myself or whatnot. But it kept kind of continuing, and I was like not really doing too much, so I didn't understand why I was still kind of feeling that way. And then earlier this week, I got a massive migraine, which I used to get them beyond often, because most of them weren't actually migraines. They were sensory headaches, sensory overload headaches. But now that I've eliminated kind of that piece from my life, I still get migraines. I just don't get them as often. So I had this like migraine beginning, like I knew it was coming. The pain hadn't fully arrived. And then like 2 days ago, my stomach started to really hurt, like really hurt. And so I'm going to sit up just a little bit and be odd, just so I can show you. It was like right here at the top, kind of, well, if you know anything about anatomy, where your gallbladder sits. And so what's interesting is that I had my gallbladder taken out 20 years ago. I was 22 and I had my gallbladder taken out because I had gallstones. And so that's right where it kind of the pain is. And I guess that part of my body will probably always be sensitive kind of in that area from having it removed. But I was having really bad pains. And so every time I get stomach pains, I just want you all to know that I am not any different from any of you. I go right into panic mode. What could it possibly be? What's wrong with me? And for me, in my family, my mom particularly had pancreatic cancer, and that's what she passed from. So anytime I get kind of any kind of belly ache at all, I immediately go to, oh my God, I have pancreatic cancer. What the hell am I going to do? So I was sitting there with this really bad stomach ache, and what it is that I sat with it for a little bit. And so I'm cranky. I'm a little tired because I've been in a lot of pain for the last few days. My stomach is sort of settled today. It's much better. It's kind of just sore and sensitive. So like a little off and icky, like right after you're kind of better from the flu, but you're not quite into eating regular food. So sort of at that place with it. And after really sitting with it and trying to figure out like, what did I eat? What did I do? What's going on? I sat with Antonio and we were talking because of course I'm worried, and just like all of you, I don't have health insurance, or many of you, I don't have great health insurance. I have Medicare through the government. I think it's still valid, but not many doctors take it. So, of course, I found myself in that really familiar autistic loop of, I need to find a doctor. I don't want to find a doctor. Oh, I have to call. Do I have to tell them I have autism? Is it going to be a thing? Are they not going to know anything about autism? And do I even bother telling, that kind of thing? And it's a lot. It's the things that keep us autistics from going to the doctor regularly. It's all of that nervous stuff. And so we were talking about it, Antonio and I. What should we do? Should I try and find somebody? Should I wait another day? Blah, 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 and just kind of going through all that. And as we talked about it, what I realized is that I had done it to myself. So I do have a lot of GI issues, as many of us on the spectrum do. But what I did to myself was I gave myself essentially an ulcer upset. Like I let what I was worrying about create physical discomfort in my body. And that's not something that's new to me. Unfortunately, I tend to kind of hold all of my emotions inside, and I think it's exacerbated by the fact that I have alexithymia, which means that I don't have access to my emotions in quite the same way. I don't understand them and identify them very well. So when I'm worried about things, not only am I struggling not to kind of identify what it is that I'm worried about or that I'm worried at all, but then I also have kind of created this lifetime habit for myself where I hang on to things, and I'm afraid to kind of talk about my feelings with people because I've been so sort of told so many times that what I'm feeling is unreasonable. So I think that was a created habit. So what I've been worrying about, I realized, as always, I think probably for the rest of my life, is I've been stressing over money and work and employment and what does it mean, and do I want to keep doing what I'm doing now and piecing everything together and going month to month? Do I want to sort of suck it up and not follow my passions and not follow my dreams and do a regular job again and try and do that for 3 months? So a lot of the options aren't great for me right now, and so I've been in this funk about it, and it's really it's a level of anxiety that is really I've been keeping inside because I think it involves Antonio too, because I think where it comes from is, in my head, I never thought I'd ever be able to buy a house, and so I finally lucked out and all of the stars aligned and everything happened at the right time and I was able to purchase this house, and now with every ounce of my being, all I want to do is keep it. And so living month to month with the idea that maybe I won't have this house a month from now is really starting to freak me out. And so that's kind of where I've been. And I think thinking about that and worrying about that on top of the anxiety of the travel, and then just, it being a relentless push against me to kind of really be, what's the word I want to say? Really be just, oh, people are talking in my house. I'm going to shut that door. Pardon me a second, you guys. Sorry about leaving you with an empty red chair, but I'm back. In any case, so that's what I did. I gave myself this stomachache, essentially. I gave myself this, this whole bellyache. So here I'm sitting, cranky, tired, but at least I've identified the source. So that's what I'll be working on, I think, this weekend and kind of going into next week, is doing actual things to alleviate the anxiety surrounding this situation. So, and part of it all is, I have to justify to Social Security that I still have a disability this year, and I'm going through a ton of paperwork with them, and that's always uncomfortable. So it's all kind of happening at the same time, and instead of sharing my concerns with Antonio or writing about them or sharing them with you guys and getting it out of my brain, I've been alone in negative self-talkville, and that made me physically sick. And sometimes that's what it takes for me to really notice that something's big is happening, I start to physically feel unwell. And that's what is the trigger. Like, oh, something's happening. You need to address it back. Something's off in your life. So I'm sorry if I'm slow today. I'm sorry if I'm talking a lot, but I felt like this was an important thing to share with you guys. I sit here and I talk to you guys about the news, and most of the time I'm pretty upbeat. I try to stay vanilla, and when I share the news and kind of give you guys just what it is. But I think part of what you guys watch these videos for is my authenticity, and at least that's what I'm getting comments about, my compliments about. So if I really want to be authentic, that means sharing the bad and the good and all of the things around it. So I wanted to share that with you because it's interesting, and I wonder if any of you guys start to show physical symptoms of any kind of emotional or mental issues that are happening for you. I'd be curious if I'm the only one. I can't imagine that I am, though. All right. My life of believing that I'm the only one with these things is way over. As soon as I got diagnosed with autism and I realized that there were a bunch of people like me, I said, okay, I can't say that anymore. There's got to be somebody else like me out there. So there has to be one of you out there who also kind of harbors your struggles in your physical body. So no, you're not alone, because I too struggle in that way. All right, guys, let me get on to the news before I keep talking forever, and this video is hugely long for no reason. Also, let me apologize for the light seems a little off to you guys. It's because I use natural lighting all the time. I don't have one of those fancy ring light things kind of cameras. So it is way cloudy outside. It was beautiful this morning, but this afternoon we have a rainstorm coming in. So it is here. It is cloudy. It's dark out there. So I figured I better do this video before it's so dark that you can't see me at all, and I'm just a voice on a black screen. Okay, you guys, let me get on to the news. All right, here we go. So this was a good news week. We had a lot of really good stuff, and I have to tell you, I had to leave things on the table to not talk about this week in Neurodiversity Newsstand because there were so many interesting articles that we had. I picked the ones that we kind of talked about the most and the ones, again, that I see shared in other places, not just in our group, so that I know that the world is kind of talking about it and that maybe it's something that, at least if this is all you're watching for the week in terms of news, you know the important stuff so you're not out of the loop. So here we are. I'm going to begin with a science article that I found interesting, and I think the reason that I find it interesting is because I'm just such a science nerd. Like I love the science, and I know when we talk about genetics and we talk about genes and splicing and all of those things in terms of our community, it's hard not to have that trigger gut reaction. Oh, it's a cure. They're looking for a cure. It's eugenics. It's eugenics. But I think what we're missing out on is that as autistics, we also have other issues that come along with that, our co-occurrers. And sometimes when we look into these gene issues, we're not looking to get rid of the autism, but we're looking for the other co-occurrers or similar co-occurrers and kind of where does it come from? And I think that's the piece that we're all forgetting. Yes, it is a monster machine. And yes, if used incorrectly, genetic material could absolutely take us down a eugenics trail. But I have to say, understanding the autism through a very scientific, genetic, black and white way, it helps us to kind of be known more, and we are not such a mystery. And when we start to remove the mystery, it starts adding to the stigma. It stops adding to the stigma, I should say. So I think the genetic stuff is interesting. So there was a study that came out this week, actually an article that came out this week in Spectrum News. It came out later this week, actually I think it was just yesterday, but it's about the massive project that is being done in terms of listing all of the genes and the genes that we think or that scientists think are connected to autism. Okay, and I'll talk about. Let me tell you what the article said first, and then I want to take a little bit of a moment to just talk about what I think is interesting. So, all right, it was in Spectrum News, and it was really called that massive project doubles the list of genes responsible for autism or tied to autism. And so in September of this year, the Spark Project, which I know I get a lot of heat for sitting on this board, the Spark board, but I'm working with them to help them kind of try to help give you guys more information so we don't have to jump into that leap of eugenics, because that's not what they're doing at all. But in any case, they released 99 genes that they are pretty sure are tied to autism. And so this is a major project that's being done. There were all kinds of numbers in the articles about the how many people's genes and all of that stuff, but I am not a numbers person. In fact, I have dyscalculia, so I can't memorize those numbers to spit them back at you guys, but they're there in the article. And the numbers that mattered to me when I read it was that in September, Spark released 99 of them, and that this article was coming from a larger organization that does all kinds of neurology type stuff, and they now have a report of 184 genes that are tied to autism. And there's one relatively new one that they go on to talk about a little more in the article, but that's not my point. Okay, I read this article and I went, oh, look at you people, right? You found 99, now you have 184. And if this doesn't sound familiar to you guys, the doubling of numbers in the autism community, right? We used to talk about it all the time in diagnosis numbers, right? We used to double our numbers in diagnosis. Oh no, it's a whole it's a health scare, it's a this, it's whatever. But what it says to me is that the longer that they continue to research, the more genes they're going to find that are tied to autism, because, quite frankly, I believe that autism is just another way of being human. Having a differently wired brain is nature's way of trying to figure out what we as a species need to continue on. right? And so the fact that as scientists are researching, God, wouldn't they have loved to have found one gene responsible for all the autism that they could just switch it off? But now they're dealing with 99, and then they're dealing with 184. And soon I think we'll be looking at the fact that there isn't just one cause, and there isn't just one kind of autism. And so we'll see where this goes, but I thought it was an interesting article from that perspective when you look at it, right? How quickly the science can change when they really start looking, and that no information that you receive upon any diagnosis is the end-all be-all of that diagnosis. The science is continuing, the information is coming, and so making sure that we're involved in it as it's coming out and not just taking one study as fact and kind of never looking at it again. So that's what I have to say about that article. Okay, next one up comes out of Harvard here in the US. It was on CNBC. And it was about ADHD meds. And so researchers are finding that ADHD meds may increase psychosis in teens and young adults with ADHD that are given these medications. And it's not something new to our community. Certainly parents of kids with ADHD. Oh, can you hear the thunder? The thunder just got here, you guys. I hope I don't lose internet while I'm talking to you guys. Anyway, so they were talking particularly about the amphetamines and the, let's see, I have to really look at the yellow pad for this one because I don't want to mispronounce it. Methylphenidates. Okay, so those are the two different kinds of medications people with ADHD are being given. And they think that the amphetamines, so Adderall and Vyvanse, are the ones that are more at risk for causing psychosis rather than Ritalin or Concerta, which were the other medications that are being given. Though they do seem to cause psychosis, it doesn't seem to be as much as those other ones. And I think this is something we have all been concerned about in terms of ADHD, autism, any of the neurodiversities and medication. When we start medicating people's brains when they're so young and their brains are still growing, are we creating more co-occurrers rather than helping to handle the current co-occurrer that is at issue, right? And so I think that was an interesting article and important that it's coming out because I think especially here in the United States, because I can't verify from any other countries, but here in the United States, doctors' go-to is medication. You come in, you're not feeling good, they want to give you a pill for that. And so it's important that we all stay also up on all of that information before we just start medicating everybody because it's the easy fix. Okay, so that was that one. Little article that we all talked about a lot that I didn't see shared too much, which I was sort of surprised about. Not great news, and it's really kind of duh news in terms of what we talk about in our community, but still, it's still happening, and that's infuriating. So we had an article out of the UK about bullies that had beat a kid in their school with a metal pole, resulting in what? Suicidal ideations for this kid. And so we need to really, come on. We talk about emotional bullying, we talk about verbal bullying, but there is no denying physical bullying because it's not bullying at that point, it's assault. And the fact that it's not being treated as assault because of the age of the people or the environment, say a school where it's happening, is really outrageous. And it's continuing. So that came out of Metro News in the UK, some more really super fun news about that stuff. We were all really disgusted, is what I have to tell you. But again, it doesn't feel like news because it feels like it's happening so much that it's not even news anymore. And why aren't people taking more time to change it when so many of us are continuing to die at our own hands because of other people's actions? So that was one that really had us talking in the group. Next up, this one, really, we talked about it. Some of us talked about it, but I feel like it got overlooked. And I'm going to talk about it again because if you didn't see it in the group, I think you should go back and read it because it's of historical importance. So Jenny Hatch has Down syndrome. She was in a historical case where she was fighting for her right to make her own decisions instead of her parents being given guardianship and being allowed to make her decisions for her. And her point of view wasn't that she should be allowed to go willy-nilly and make whatever decisions she wants, but she shouldn't be left out of her decisions either. So her case, when it came through with her attorney, she was fighting for what we all now call supported decision-making. And she was the first one to really be talking about it. Her case was revolutionary that she should be talking about, that she doesn't feel like she can make her decisions alone, but she doesn't feel like she's incapable of making decisions at all, right? So she didn't want them taken away from her. What she wanted was help in helping her make those decisions, right? So she could make informed decisions, and that's supported decision making. You guys, it's huge for us. It was a huge breakthrough. And I think everyone needs to go back and reread the article about Jenny Hatch that came out in the Washington Post. Really good article and an important component of what goes on for those of us with ID and DD. So please take a look at that article about Jenny Hatch. Of course, everything I talk about will be listed in the description, as it always is for you guys. But let's move on. This is sort of at the lighter half of our material, you guys. So books, events, blogs, fun things like that I'm at. And this week I want to draw attention to a piece that came out in the New York Times. It was a parenting piece, and it was titled, "My Daughter and I Got Diagnosed with Autism the Same Day." Okay, and that's not a unique story, right? We have sons and daughters getting diagnosed and their parents finding out that way through their kids' diagnosis that they are also on the spectrum. And what this woman talked about is what it was like to journey through both diagnoses at the same time, right? Because she had to come to terms with her own diagnosis at the same time that she was dealing with her child's diagnosis. And we all know very well that adult autistics and children autistics do not look the same. We don't present the same, and we don't all have the same challenges. So it was an interesting piece to take a look at from an autistic parenting perspective, from a late diagnosis perspective, all of those. And I thought it was a really nice piece. I saw it shared a few times, and I really liked it. So I'm sharing it with you guys. It's your should read for this week. Parents, individuals, everybody, clinicians. It was a good read, so check it out. Next up, I have for you a screening of a documentary. So there's a documentary that's come out of Iceland. It's called Seeing the Unseen, and it's about a woman's journey, or many women's journey, with an autism diagnosis. So it's a really beautiful film. I know Christine Jenkins has been really involved in trying to get it out of Iceland into other countries. And so she has figured out how to set up a screening at Carleton University of Seeing the Unseen on November 15th. So if you are around or in Ottawa on November 15th and you'd like to catch this film, it's going to be a screening and a panel discussion afterwards at Carleton University. And I will, of course, link it for you in the description. All right. Next up, Autism Explained Online Summit. So this is an event, and it's going to be 25 talks in 5 days that are available to you. 75% of them are autistic speakers, which is incredibly important when we're going to be explaining autism, to have autistics there explaining it. And so that's what we've got. It's free. So I went ahead and registered so I could take a look at what happens on it for you guys. And so what it is all of the talks in the 5 days are there, and you can go through and you can watch all of them one at a time. You can watch them and binge them for all they care. And it is free. 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 Free information is the best, especially when it's coming from people that we trust. And so as a community, the people involved in this summit, wonderful people, speakers, great speakers. So take a chance, register for it, watch it at your leisure. Only watch the ones you're interested in. It doesn't matter. Free and online, just the way autistics like it. So check that out, please. That's online. And then last up for you in terms of events that are going on, I have on here a big important one, which is the ASAN Gala. So the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network once a year does a gala to raise money for themselves and to sort of celebrate what they've done this year. And so I've gone a few times, especially when I lived in New York. It was easier for me because it's usually on the East Coast. And this year is no exception. It is going to be in DC on November 13th in DC. And it's going to be from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Great speakers this year. So they've got Alice Wong, who's from the Disability Visibility Project, as well as Crip the Vote, Alice Wong does. So she will be there speaking, as well as Dora Raymaker, who I've talked about before. She's a fantastic researcher out of the West Coast, out of Aspire, and she does some amazing things. She's also a great fiction writer, and she really participates in some really important research protocols that we're going to be talking about. So she's a great person. So you got those two amazing speakers this year at the gala. If you have time, if you're on the East Coast and you have time to go check it out, I would go just for the speakers alone. But it's a great gala. So again, that's November 13th, 6 to 9 p.m. in Washington, D.C. I will put the link for you guys at the end. And that is it for news, but I do want to give one last shout out. I got to give this shout out because I am way impressed. Okay, so this shout out goes to the Autistics United of Canada, particularly the Fort McMurray chapter. They have done a fantastic campaign this month. Excuse me. It is called Autober, and what they are doing is highlighting an autistic advocate each day of October on their Facebook page. So I'm going to link to their Facebook page. You can take a look at all of the 18 of them that you've missed so far, and then keep a watch of the rest of the ones for this month. I thought it was a brilliant idea. I love that you guys are doing this. Shout out to Autistics United Canada, Fort McMurray chapter. You guys are doing an amazing thing this month, and I hope everybody who's watching goes and at least checks it out, because I thought it was great, and I'm loving having them all. I mean, so far I've seen Krista Holman's, I've seen some older autistics, like historically older autistics, and I think that's a really important mix, and they're sharing some really special information and highlighting some amazing advocates. So Fort McMurray, thank you so much. Autistics United Canada, thank you so much. I think it's a great campaign. It was a genius idea, and I love that you guys are doing it one a day for the entire month. So everybody go check them out. I will link their Facebook page in the description. And that's about it for me this week. That's what I took out of Neurodiversity Newsstand this week, out of our group and our conversations. If I missed something that you guys think is really valuable, if you have an event coming up that you want me to share, if you have a blog coming out that you'd like for me to read, any of that stuff, feel free to join Neurodiversity Newsstand, share it in Neurodiversity Newsstand. That's where I pull everything for this little YouTube video channel thing. I don't know what to call it. It's not a TV show. I don't know. I'll come up with something, whatever. But that's where I find all the material for this little thing that I do. And so if you want that stuff shared, your books, your events, your blogs, your memes, all of it, go into Neurodiversity Newsstand, join it, share it there. You can also reach me through info@beccalaurie.com if you'd like to. And of course, you can comment on these videos. You can share them. You can comment on them when I share them in social media. I don't care where you get in touch with me. Let me know you're watching. Let me know if you like it, if you hate it, if you want more, if I missed something, whatever it is, get in touch with me. I love hearing from you guys. And most importantly, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. So look for the red subscribe at the bottom. Go ahead and click that. And you can click the bell to get notifications, because I put these out every Friday. I put them out at different times on Friday when I have the time to sit down and do them. So if you want to make sure you get them right away, hit the notification bell. I also appreciate your thumbs up and thumbs down, letting me know if I'm doing a good job or bad job, because then I know what to do next time. Otherwise, you're just going to hear me complain about all the things I complain about and just the news that I think is interesting. And that's no fun. That makes it not an us. We're not an us then. I like that we're an us. So let's be an us, and let's us have a really good weekend. Enjoy it. Do something amazing. Share your something amazing with me. I'd love to hear about it. I am going to be continuing to treat my belly nicely for the next few days and to try and take some action steps toward relieving what's causing the discomfort in the first place. Have an amazing one, you guys. I am Becca Laurie Hector, your host of Neurodiversity Newsstand, and I will see you next week.